The Broncos going with a younger, fresh approach on the offensive side of the ball as Rich Scangarello named the offensive coordinator today for the Broncos. Hello from the Broncos Media Center. I'm Phil Milani alongside Matt Boyer and Steve Atwater. Matt, what is this fresh approach going to look like on the offensive side?
Well, Kyle Shanahan has been one of the brightest offensive minds in the NFL. We've seen it for the past couple of years. He was a finalist for the Broncos head coaching job back in 2017. I think that with Rich, you see a guy who has developed young quarterbacks. Jimmy Garoppolo goes down, enter Nick Mullins, a guy who really nobody had heard of last year, Steve, up until the midway point, and he's just kind of lighting it on fire. Did a really nice job bringing that San Francisco offense along. I know they had a lot of injuries, but Mullins really might be responsible for Rich being in this position right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, he did a great job with both Mullins and with Garoppolo. But I guess the question is Rich Scangarello responsible for that? Now, you know, the guys came out and played well, and it looks like all the quarterbacks that he's worked with has played well. And a lot of people look at this and say, man, how does this guy have this opportunity with only 2 years? He was an offensive assistant and then a quarterback's coach. How does he have this opportunity? Apparently, he's learned a lot from Kyle Shanahan. And I think that's what people are excited to see.
Yeah, only 4 years of NFL experience for Scangarello. And we know that Kyle Shanahan calls the plays out there in San Francisco. So how do you think he's going to be able to step into this role? Really a role that we thought maybe Gary Kubiak was going to be taking over.
I think that with Rich, you get a guy who has learned from Kyle in diagnosing defenses. You remember the Broncos game against the Niners. They were depleted at the time the Niners were on offense, but what did they have? They had George Kittle, and Shanahan knew that the Broncos had trouble covering tight ends previously in the season, and he maximized. He knew where to get Kittle into space.
But that's what Shanahan did.
Well,
so
yeah, but he's in those meetings.
Scangarello?
Rich is in those meetings. He knows what the game plan was. He was part of that game planning process. Otherwise, Steve, I don't think he'd be in this position.
Yeah, well, when he was the offensive assistant, quality control with the Atlanta Falcons, prior to doing that, he was a Kyle Shanahan fan. He used to study tape to see what Kyle Shanahan was doing. And then once he got down there to Atlanta and then to San Francisco, he got a chance to be in the meetings and, you know, really understand the intricacies of Kyle's offense. Now the question is, will he be able to teach it as in depth as Kyle can?
Oh, you read a little bit about Scangarello. You hear he's sort of a quarterback whisperer. I mean, I guess the 49ers weren't even interested in Nick Mullins, but he was like, hey, let's take a look at this guy. We saw him do it last year with C.J. Beathard and, of course, with Jimmy Garoppolo, too. What does this mean for the Broncos going forward? Because we hear John Elway say, hey, we still need to find a long-term solution at the quarterback position. Maybe a guy like Scangarello can come in here and really help the Broncos find that guy.
Well, you know, with Case Keenum, you've got a veteran guy, but certainly is moldable and wants to learn from guys like Rich. And you mentioned, I think this draft process, he's going to be very involved in analyzing talent. He's going to be in those draft room meetings, I'm sure, giving his opinion because he is going to have a lot of input if the Broncos do draft a young quarterback.
Yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see how that all plays out, knowing that he's had some really big success with some quarterbacks who hadn't really reached their peak yet, and had, you know, guys who basically unknown guys that he's kind of gotten to the next level. So I'll be interested to see if he'll be actually involved in the draft process and how much input he'll have.
Yeah, well, we heard that John Elway said the Broncos want to move this offense to the new age, this new style, a younger mind. That's exactly what they're getting here with the new offensive coordinator, Rich Scangarello. That's going to do it for us. For Steve Atwater and Matt Boyer, I'm Phil Milani.